lawful and fair election, end quotes. The one kind of abortion they don't favor, the aborting of a fair and free election. So in every case, though, the defendant's real crime was not aborting the election. No, the real crime, and the DOJ says it right in the filing, is denying the outcome of the election. It was believing the wrong thing. It was not believing that a senile man who refused to leave his basement during the campaign somehow got more votes than any president in American history. If you refuse to believe that, you're now a felon. Question the system, and they haul you away. Those are the rules now, as hundreds of imprisoned Republicans can personally testify if they can speak. So the legal precedent has been established. You cannot deny elections. And yet, even in the face of the mounting evidence, this is now a very serious felony, there are some extremists who are not deterred. They're continuing to commit the crime of election denial, and they're bold enough to do it on video. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is one of them.
I know we're all focused on the 2022 midterm elections, and they are incredibly important. But we also have to look ahead, because you know what? Our opponents certainly are. Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election. And they're not making a secret of it. The right-wing controlled Supreme Court may be poised to rule on giving state legislatures, yes, you heard me that correctly, state legislatures the power to overturn presidential elections.
Yeah, they stole them and need to be overturned.
Right-wing extremists will literally, let's teach that word in NPR, literally steal the next election. So that's preemptive election denial, committed by Hillary Clinton herself. But here's the thing. Probably not likely that an FBI SWAT team is going to show up at Hillary Clinton's house when she's in the shower tomorrow morning. And in fact, the next time a courthouse is attacked in Portland, Oregon, or a church is torched in downtown Washington, D.C., it's unlikely that a DOJ court filing will cite what Hillary Clinton just said as an extremist ideology that led to violence. Why is that? Well, because in the considered opinion of the Democratic Party and the DOJ, it's not election denial when they do it. No, it's just election-affirming care. And there's been a lot of election-affirming care going around this past week. In Washington, in the hometown newspaper owned by Jeff Bezos, the Washington Post, Max Boot just announced that, we're quoting, if the current trends hold up, we're going to take over at least the House and quite possibly the Senate too, along with many state offices. This is how democracies die, both at home and abroad. In other words, if you vote for the wrong person, that's not democracy, which, by the way, unlike dictatorship, does not always come to conclusions in favor. That's not democracy. That's the death of democracy. Democracy dies in both darkness and non-liberal election outcomes. Oh, okay. New York Magazine isn't waiting around for the next election. Here's their latest dispatch. Quote, there are already signs of 2020 election deniers refusing to accept their own possible defeat this year. And that's half true, of course, but New York Magazine isn't talking about Republicans. Quote, most observers are primarily worried that Trump's 2020 shenanigans may have served as a dress rehearsal for 2024. Wait, what? So that means you have Democrats 2 years before the presidential election telling us that that election is going to be rigged. But that's not undermining confidence in elections? That's not an attack on our sacred norms? Not when it happens in New York Magazine or at PBS, which, by the way, you continue to fund with your tax dollars, the channel nobody watches. The only people who watch PBS are the ones who are stuck in traction and the attendants going out for a cigarette and taking the remote. But they're still broadcasting. And here's what they're saying. Quote, nearly 1 in 3 Republican candidates for statewide office support false election claims. So why aren't they in prison? And what is the end game of these dangerous extremists led by Donald Trump? Well, Vanity Fair figured it out. They blew the plan wide open. Quote, and then there's Donald Trump, Vanity Fair reported. He hasn't been implicated in any murders that we know of, nor is he currently trying to kill anyone, again, that we know of. He is, however, said to be actively plotting to steal the midterm elections and the presidential one after that. End quote. Did you hear that? Donald Trump is going to steal the midterm elections and then the presidential election. How is he going to do that? And isn't predicting he's going to do that Isn't that itself a crime? We can't say. We're not Merrick Garland. But we do know how he's going to do it. Hillary Clinton's been giving that away for years. Donald Trump is going to do that, as he always has done it, with help from Vladimir Putin himself. Watch.
We know the Russians hacked the DNC, hacked my campaign, etc. Trump knows he's an illegitimate president who got illegitimate foreign help. I do think that he knows that he's an illegitimate president. I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president. You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
Stolen from you by Putin? We better have a nuclear war with him. Oh, we're moving toward that. Too bad every Republican leader in Washington is for it. How dumb are these people? But if you take 3 steps back, you will know that nothing the January 6th defendants has ever said, even the guy with the Viking horns on acid, nothing they've said is half as crazy as what you just heard Hillary Clinton said. In federal courtrooms, January 6th defendants are being sentenced to prison because they're not exactly sure how it is that Joe Biden got 15 million more votes than Barack Obama did. Barack Obama, the rock star who was president, and yet his vice president was so stupid that even Barack Obama could barely stand to be in the same room as him, got 15 million more votes than he did? How did that work? How did Joe Biden get more votes than any president in American history? Is that not a fair question? No, it's not. It's a crime to ask. And yet no one bats an eye when Hillary Clinton tells us that Putin is literally going to steal the election. So how is it that only one side is allowed to deny the results of elections? Okay. No one answers that. Here's Joe Biden claiming that Democrats don't question election results.
This is a nation that believes in the rule of law. We do not repudiate it. This is a nation that respects free and fair elections. We honor the will of the people. We do not deny it.
We do not deny it. Unless, of course, 2 weeks out from a pivotal midterm election, we get the sense based on polling that we're about to be spanked with the bad little girls we are, at which point we start making excuses and planting the seeds for more election denial, just as we did after Donald Trump won. It's exactly what's going on now. Even as they try to destroy the careers and tear down the character of people who ask honest questions about the last election. And that would include Ron Johnson, who is the senator from Wisconsin, the Republican. One of the very few Republicans in the entire U.S. Senate who has actually improved every year that he served there. That's the opposite of the normal progression for Republicans in the Senate, in case you haven't noticed. Now, Ron Johnson is running against someone who's legitimately far out. His name is Mandela Barnes. On Twitter, Barnes once rang in the new year by praising, and few politicians do this, by praising Iran's Ayatollah because he supports BLM. And we're quoting. The first tweet of 2015 from @Khamenei IR is Black Lives Matter. Let that sink in. May this be a most wonderful year for you and yours, Barnes wrote. So he's got the Ayatollah vote. Barnes also wants to abolish ICE, defund the police, and end cash bail. So that would result in further chaos and the total destruction of American society. Might be worth following up on that. But no, the media in Wisconsin are still talking about Ron Johnson's election denial. Here's his hometown newspaper, which no one reads in fairness, attacking him the other day for it. Quote, election deceiver, science fabulous, billionaire benefactor. After 12 years, it's time to term limit Senator Ron Johnson. So again, just to be clear, Democrats are sending people to prison for questioning the last election, trying to prevent people from getting elected in the midterm election for questioning the last election, while at the very same time telling you that the 2016 election was rigged, the midterm will likely be rigged, and we know for a fact the 2024 election is not on the level. How does this work exactly? Senator Ron Johnson joins us tonight. Senator, thanks so much for coming on. Is it a little weird to be attacked by your hometown newspaper as an election denier on the very same day the people who run the Democratic Party are preemptively denying the outcome of an election that hasn't even happened yet?
Well, hello, Tucker. Those are some of the better headlines I received from the mainstream media here in Wisconsin. Now, let's face it. What is happening here is a classic tactic of the left. Falsely accuse your political opponents of doing exactly what you do. Let's face it, how many leading Democrats said that the 2016 election was legitimate? No, they spent 4 years trying to overturn it, a corrupt FBI investigation. And it was the complicit and corrupt media that allowed all this to go on. They were fed all the false information. You know, why have they exposed the people that fed them false information? What about the 570 riots during the summer of 2020? 2,000 law enforcement officers injured, $1 to $2 billion worth of property damage, couple dozen people killed, including 2 people here in Kenosha. You know, why don't they talk about that? No, all they do is focus on January 6th. I think this has always been a massive diversionary operation against their or from their own wrongdoing. So again, classic operation of the left. It's a classic tactic, and unfortunately, they have some corrupt media that's backing them up.
So you're saying things out loud that you're not supposed to say out loud. We interviewed earlier today Dr. Robert Epstein, who is a professor of psychology who studies Google, and he told us that he has never seen Google put its sizable thumb on the scale more aggressively than in Wisconsin right now, that Google is trying to lose you the race and get Mandela Barnes elected because they're so threatened by the things that you are saying. Are you aware of this, and what's your response to it?
No, I'm fully aware, and I know of his work. You know, he's talking about how Google uses their search to manipulate opinion, how they only text, for example, get out the vote to Democrat supporters. We saw Mark Zuckerberg use his Zuckerbucks, completely took over the Green Bay election in 2020, and yet this is the safest, most secure election. Of course it wasn't. There were all kinds of irregularities. I held a hearing in December of 2020 because I was not going to scornfully dismiss the legitimate concerns of tens of millions of Americans because observers weren't able to observe. Here in Wisconsin, we had a legislative audit bureau, nonpartisan, bipartisan audit of our election, 31 recommendations because things went wrong. We had our Wisconsin Election Commission issue guidances contrary to state law, election clerks, procedures contrary to state law, and yet we're all supposed to say, oh no, it's the most secure election. It wasn't.
No, it wasn't. And they absolutely hate you for saying that out loud, and that's why we're certainly rooting for you. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, good luck in that race.
Have a good night.
Thank you.